In the year 2001, there was a momentous event in my life. It all began when I got a phone call from my girlfriend, who was in a state of panic. She said there was an urgent situation and that she needed to meet me right away. The day was cloaked in dense fog, making everything outside appear eerie and unclear. Despite the unsettling weather, I made up my mind to go see her. As I set out on the foggy morning, my heart was filled with worry for her. The thick mist made it hard to see anything beyond a mere 5 feet ahead of my car. I squinted my eyes to discern the road in front of me. While driving along the misty highway, fear swirled within me. Then, out of nowhere, a shocking sight unfolded before me in the fog. I was horrified to see a figure directly in front of my car, almost like an apparition emerging from the fog. To my dismay, this figure bore an uncanny resemblance to my girlfriend. My heart pounded like a drum as I slammed my foot on the brakes, but this ghostly image, so similar to her, refused to budge. It had a sorrowful and distant expression on its face and started to walk away slowly, as if beckoning me to follow. Shaken and bewildered, I parked my car at the side of the road and called out for her. I wanted to understand what was happening, but as I pursued her, she vanished into the thick fog, as if she were never there. I felt a bone-chilling shiver race down my spine, and my heart pounded wildly in my chest. Despite the unsettling encounter, I pressed on, determined to reach my girlfriend's home. The eerie incident continued to haunt my thoughts. When I finally arrived at her house, her parents received me with somber and anxious expressions on their faces. They shared something with me that sent a wave of terror through my entire being. They informed me that my girlfriend had fallen seriously ill and, tragically, she had passed away 2 weeks ago. My mind struggled to comprehend this devastating news. I was in absolute disbelief. It couldn't be true. Just yesterday, she had called me, her voice filled with longing, asking me to visit her. Tears welled up in my eyes as I wept alongside her grieving parents. To this day, I remain bewildered by the eerie encounter on that foggy highway, and the news of her passing continues to haunt my thoughts. It remains a chilling and unsolved mystery, a memory I cannot escape. I have lived in Fresno, California, my whole life. One day, I had a big argument with my parents. Filled with anger, I stormed out of my house, not thinking straight. I decided to visit my friend, who lived a long 6-hour drive away from my home. Half of the journey took me through dense forests and thick woods. I had heard about a dirt road that could cut my trip short, but it was known to be eerie, and I had never dared to take it alone. However, in the heat of the moment, I found the courage to give it a try. As I navigated through the narrow, winding path, my car jolted over bumps and around sharp corners, and as the sun was going down and it'd be night soon, it seemed to close in on me. Then something strange happened. Out of nowhere, I saw little kids wearing Hmong traditional clothes darting across the road right in front of my car. It was so unexpected that I couldn't help but be curious. I stopped the car and got out to watch them run to a nearby creek, where they began to dig under the rocks and eat something. I remembered my grandpa's stories about Hmong ghosts in the creeks of Laos, and a chill ran down my spine. I quickly hopped back into my car, my heart pounding in my chest. I sped away, hoping to put as much distance as possible between those mysterious children and me. But as I continued driving for what felt like hours, I glanced into my rearview mirror, and to my horror, I saw those same 3 kids in Hmong clothes chasing my car. It didn't matter how fast I turned through the winding forest road. They were always right behind me, getting closer with every twist and turn. Finally, I reached the end of that eerie dirt road, and as I prepared to exit, I looked up at a small hill. There, standing all alone, was a small child in Hmong clothing, waving at me with a ghostly smile. By the time I got to my friend's house, it was late. I told him about the shortcut and what I had seen. He told me that his dad saw something similar to what I saw years ago, and since then they have never taken that road. That night was a terrifying experience I will never forget. I vowed never to take that shortcut through the forest again, and I couldn't help but wonder if those children were something more than just kids. For years, my wife and I dreamt of owning a house where we could raise our 4 children. Finally, the day came when we found the perfect place. It was an old but charming house with a spacious basement tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. Little did we know that our long-awaited dream would soon turn into a terrifying nightmare. In our first week of living there, my wife heard something that sent shivers down her spine. Late one night, as she was in the kitchen, she thought she heard someone yelling from the basement. At first, she assumed it was our kids playing around. However, as she strained her ears to listen more closely, she realized it wasn't our children's voices. It was the sound of kids yelling in distress. Panicked, she rushed to get me, and together we descended into the basement. The moment our feet touched the cold concrete floor, we heard it, the unmistakable sound of multiple gunshots echoing through the basement. Our hearts pounded, and fear gripped us as we tried to make sense of the horrifying noise. Just as we were trying to comprehend the situation, we heard heavy and furious pounding on the basement door. It was as if someone was violently trying to break through. Panic overwhelmed us, and we could still hear the echoes of gunshots in the background. We were convinced that we were under attack, possibly the victims of a home invasion. In a frantic rush, I gathered our children and guided them to safety outside. We dialed 911, and within minutes, police sirens wailed through the night, bringing a sense of temporary relief. The officers quickly entered our home, ready to confront the intruders in the basement, but what they discovered sent chills down our spines. There was no one in the basement, no evidence of gunshots or intruders. The room was eerily quiet, devoid of any disturbance. It was as if the terrifying ordeal we had experienced was nothing but a ghastly illusion. As the last officer was about to leave, he turned to us and revealed something that chilled us to the core. He said he had been to this very house years ago, investigating a gruesome and horrifying crime. A father had murdered his wife and all 5 of his children in that very basement. Blood had soaked the walls, and the brutality of the act had nearly caused him to quit his job. His words left us stunned and terrified. The nights that followed were unbearable. The sounds of arguments and distress continued to emanate from the basement, persisting month after month. We couldn't endure it any longer, and finally, we decided to reach out to our real estate agent to discuss the possibility of selling the house. Our dream home had turned into a living nightmare, and we were desperate to escape the horror that had consumed our lives. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, on a bright and sunny day, my husband and I made a plan to venture into the woods for a delightful hike. The air was so clean, and the natural world around us looked exceptionally beautiful as we ventured deeper and deeper into the forest. Everything felt just perfect until we stumbled upon a remarkably ancient and eerie house that lay hidden in the heart of the woods. As we ventured closer to the mysterious house, my husband, who had been acting somewhat strangely throughout our hike, claimed to have spotted someone lurking about in the shadows. At first, I thought it was merely his imagination playing tricks on him. But as the sun gradually began its descent, things took a turn towards the truly frightening. All of a sudden, without any warning, my husband dashed up a nearby hill and vanished into the growing evening darkness. My heart raced with fear as the forest surroundings grew darker, and I was left with no choice but to make my way back to our car, all on my own. With the arrival of the morning light, I mustered the courage to contact the police, who initiated an exhaustive search of the hiking trail and the areas we had explored. My eyes couldn't help but well up with tears as I grappled with the dreadful uncertainty of it all. For a long and sorrowful 8 weeks, I continued parking my car at the very spot where our hike had commenced, hoping and praying that my husband would return. But alas, he did not. 4 years later, on that fateful day, on an otherwise unremarkable morning, there came an unexpected knock at my front door. Trembling with nerves, I slowly creaked open the door, and to my astonishment, there stood my husband, still dressed in the same attire he had worn during our ill-fated hike. Overwhelmed with emotion, I embraced him tightly, tears of joy streaming down my cheeks, and in a voice choked with relief, I asked him where he had been. He came inside our house but didn't say a word. I rushed to the bedroom to get my phone and tell my parents the amazing news. When I came back to the living room, my husband had disappeared, and the front door was wide open. I shouted in sadness as I searched for him, but he was gone again. 10 years have gone by since that strange day, and I still don't know what happened to my husband. The mystery of his strange return and then disappearing again stays with me, and it makes me really sad and uncertain. I had been having a recurring dream that haunted my nights, a dream about a girl of unparalleled beauty, her mesmerizing eyes, raven black hair, and an ethereal grace that was beyond imagination. We met in a dream world, a place where the surreal felt so real. In each dream, we would share experiences and moments, weaving a connection that seemed impossible. These dreams were both captivating and chilling. One fateful weekend, I visited the local swap meet, just like any other day. As I perused the market, the sun's rays pierced through the crowded stalls, casting an eerie glow over everything. That's when I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder, causing me to jump with a start. I turned around to find the girl from my dreams standing before me. My heart raced and my mind swirled with disbelief. She was there in the flesh, just as I had seen her in my dreams. She smiled warmly and said, "I've been waiting for you, you know. I've been with you in your dreams, seen all those moments you thought were hidden from the world." My stomach churned with unease. How could she know about those intimate, hidden dreams that I'd never told a soul? She continued, recounting our dream adventures and describing the very layout of my home, down to the tiniest details. My fear was undeniable, but a strange magnetism pulled me towards her. Her beauty and familiarity were like an enchanting spell I couldn't resist. I tried to run, but she was always there at every corner, every turn, watching me. We began to spend time together, and despite my initial apprehension, I couldn't help but fall in love with her. Our connection was undeniable, as if the dreams had brought us together for a reason. Yet there was always an underlying sense of dread, like a storm brewing on the horizon. One evening, I confided in my uncle about this strange turn of events. He had a friend who was a shaman, and they believed that a supernatural force was at play. They arranged for a ritual to be performed to sever the connection between me and the girl from my dreams. The shaman conducted the ritual, chanting incantations that sent shivers down my spine. As he finished, he told me that a new name would protect me from her grasp, and with that, I was given a new identity. Since that day, the dreams ceased, and the girl's haunting presence vanished. But I could never forget the enchanting nightmare that had become my reality. The shaman's ritual had set me free, but it had also cost me a part of myself. My old life, my old name, all disappeared into the unknown, and I couldn't help but wonder if I would ever truly escape the chilling memory of the girl who knew me better than I knew myself. I remember that fateful hunting trip with my 5 friends like it was yesterday. We ventured deep into the woods, excited about the prospect of a bountiful catch. We were a tight-knit group, always sharing our secrets and adventures. Little did they know, this hunt would lead me down a dark and terrifying path. As we trekked through the dense forest, the sun dipping below the horizon, something peculiar caught my eye. Nestled among the fallen leaves, there it was, a shining, glowing rock bathed in an eerie, otherworldly light. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. I pocketed the mysterious find without telling a soul as greed and curiosity took hold of me. The rock seemed to bring me luck, or so I thought. In the weeks that followed, I found myself hitting the lottery again and again, each ticket bringing me more wealth than I'd ever dreamed of. My friends marveled at my incredible fortune, and I reveled in the riches the shining rock had bestowed upon me. But as the lottery wins piled up, a chilling pattern emerged. With each jackpot, one of my friends fell ill, and their condition rapidly deteriorated. One by one, my dear companions succumbed to a mysterious and sinister illness, and I was left to witness their suffering, helpless to save them. It was a nightmarish cycle. With every lottery win, another friend's life was extinguished. I couldn't ignore the undeniable connection between my newfound wealth and their tragic deaths. Guilt and fear gnawed at my soul, but I remained silent, desperate to hold on to the wealth and power the glowing rock granted me. As I grieved for my lost friends, I began to piece together the horrifying truth. The shining rock, with its eerie glow, had exacted a sinister toll for my newfound riches. It demanded a life for every lottery victory, and it was my selfishness that had condemned my friends to their cruel fate. With a heavy heart and a growing sense of dread, I returned to the place where I had found the cursed rock. In a trembling hand, I placed it back among the leaves where it rightfully belonged. As I did, a deep sense of foreboding lifted, and I hoped that the malevolent curse would be appeased. Since that day, I have never uttered a word about the shining, glowing rock to anyone. The secret remains buried deep within me, a dark chapter of my life that I dare not revisit. I've learned the hard way that some treasures are best left undiscovered, as the price for their power can be far too high, and the horrors they bring can haunt you for the rest of your days. This happened in 1997, and I live in Merced, California. I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it happened a while back. I used to work late, and every night as I drove back home, I'd see her, the woman in the purple dress, standing by the side of the dark road. It was strange, she was always there, and I began to wonder why. One evening I decided to pull over and find out. The moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows that danced around her. She was a young and beautiful Mong Lady, her traditional attire vibrant against the gloomy backdrop. I parked my car and approached her cautiously. "Excuse me," I said, my voice trembling a bit. "Why are you always here, standing by this dark road?" She turned to me, her eyes deep and sorrowful. Her voice was soft, like a whisper of the wind. "I'm waiting for someone who left this world too soon." I couldn't help but feel a shiver down my spine. "Who are you waiting for?" I asked, my curiosity mixed with a growing sense of unease. "My lover," she replied. "He died in a car accident right here, on this very spot. I wait for him to come back to me, to keep his promise." Tears glistened in her eyes, and I felt a strange sadness wash over me. I couldn't fathom how long she must have been waiting in the darkness for a love that could never return. As the nights passed, I couldn't shake the image of the beautiful Mong Lady in the purple dress from my mind. Her presence haunted me, and I began to learn more about her story. The accident had occurred many years ago, and her lover's spirit was said to still wander in the area, unable to find peace. Then, one fateful night, as I was driving home from work, I saw her again. She was there as always, but this time she was different. Her eyes were not filled with sorrow, but with an eerie joy. She smiled at me and said, "He's back, he's finally back." I watched in astonishment as a faint figure materialized beside her, a shadowy form that gradually took shape into her long-lost lover. They embraced, their love transcending the realms of the living and the dead. And then, just like that, they both vanished into the night, leaving behind a feeling of profound sadness. The road, once a place of haunting mystery, became quiet and still, as if the souls of the lovers had finally found their eternal rest. As I continued my drive home, I couldn't help but wonder if their reunion was a blessing or a curse. It was a haunting experience that reminded me that love, in its purest form, knows no boundaries, not even between life and death.